My name is Omolewa, and my time is running out. As I look back, I want to share my story, the joy, the regrets, and lessons learned. I hope that by sharing my truth, others can learn and live a more meaningful life than mine. 3 years ago, I graduated from secondary school, and my parents were beaming with pride. I remember the joy on their faces as I accepted awards after awards on stage. They had always supported and encouraged me to work hard and pursue my dreams. I had the best results in the senior secondary certificate examination in my state and was also ranked among the top 15 performers nationwide by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, popularly known as JAMB. My outstanding results made it easy for me to get into my first choice university. A night before leaving my parents' house, they called me to their room and advised me in a way that they have never done before. My father was not a man of many words, but that night he poured out his heart and spoke for so long till midnight. One advice of his that keeps ringing in my head as I lay on my deathbed is, "My dearest Omolewa, remember the child of whom you are." Had I known that the adage that what a man sees while sitting, a child will never be able to see it even after climbing the tallest tree is nothing but the truth. I arrived at the school hostel late in the evening of the following day. I had promised myself not to cry when my parents dropped me, but I couldn't stop the tears from falling from my eyes as I hugged my mother and bid her goodbye. I entered the hostel with mixed feelings of excitement and fear. The hostel parents were extremely nice to me, except a fat woman wearing a heavy makeup by that time of the evening. She had this strange aura that I couldn't describe. It didn't take much time for me to be allocated to a room, which I was to share with two other girls. I dragged myself and my luggage slowly to my room and was welcomed by a pretty girl with the kindest eyes and warmest smile I have ever seen in my life. She looked much older than me and a bit plump. She wore a pajamas and tied her hair up in a bun. I didn't realize that I was staring at her and analyzing her looks for a bit too long until I was brought back to reality when she asked if I was okay. I simply smiled and felt grateful as she helped in carrying my bags into the room. The room was a bit smaller than I expected, but it wasn't bad either. I found a bed just by the doorside and laid immediately on it. My roommate didn't spare me a second before she said, "If I were you, I would hurriedly get out of that bed before the owner comes back." I jumped from the bed as I didn't want any trouble with anyone on my first day. My roommate chuckled and introduced herself to me. "I am Chidinma, a 200 level English student, a lover of God and a clean freak. What about you?" she asked me. I told her my name and also boasted that I was a lover of God, plus the fact that my parents were deacons in my local church. Chidinma smiled and said, "I think we will get along well." As she helped me lay my bed, she said suddenly as if a force had reminded her something of urgency, "Omolewa, please, in everything you do in this school, stay far away from Dora. I beg you in the name of God." I was confused and asked her who Dora was. "She is the owner of the bed you laid on earlier," she answered. It is a plea, likewise a gentle warning, to avoid her at all costs. I didn't know who Dora was, but Chidinma sounded serious, so I nodded in agreement, but kept on wondering why she said so. For the next few days, Chidima helped me with my verification process and took me round the school. She also introduced me to her friends and took me to the campus fellowship she attended. A week passed and I was already getting used to the system. One night when everyone was fully asleep, I heard our room door open quietly. I was afraid at first and laid still on my bed. Chidima switched on the light suddenly. The light startled the lady that entered, but she regained her composure almost immediately and smiled widely at Chidima. Is that how you welcome your roommate back, Chidi baby? She asked Chidima, but one could tell that her smile and question were a bit fake. Before Chidima could answer her, she turned to my direction and asked Chidima, Chidi baby, who is this fine girl? She's a fresher, right? As Chidima refused to answer her, she moved towards me and stretched her hand to me. I'm Dora. I accepted the handshake and answered, Nice to meet you, Dora. I am Omolewa. She then smiled at Chidima and said good night before throwing herself on her unlaid bed and slept off. I looked at Dora for a long time and thought how bad she must have been to Chidima for her to hate her this much. I drifted to sleep and surprisingly dreamt about Dora all through the night. I never knew she would turn out to be my nemesis. Dora was nicer than I had thought, and she was extremely nice to me. I found myself strangely drawn to her. I loved her dress sense, the way she spoke and laughed. She was the star girl of our hostel. Everyone was her friend, including the fat hostel parent that is feared by a lot of people, Mrs. Badamosi. Dora would buy her presents every day and sit with her for hours, talking and laughing about random stuff which I have never seen any other students do. Though Dora was free with me and everyone, but she seemed so mysterious to me as I wasn't really at ease talking to her. I got back to the hostel one evening after a long day of attending lectures. I met her in the room dressed up and applying makeup on her face. She seemed as though she was going out. I was compelled to start a conversation with her against Chidima's warning. Hi Dora, I said. Are you going out? She looked at me surprised and said, so you're interested in talking freely to me today? I didn't answer her but rather bowed my head in silence. She motioned for me to sit down and said, What I want to tell you is a secret. I am sneaking out of the hostel tonight to attend a party. My eyes opened with surprise and I said, But the hostel parents would not allow you to go. She let out a laugh and answered me, I am a big girl. I know how I run my things. Do you think I'm a small 17-year-old girl like you? I am Dora, Big Mama. Do you even know my age? Of course, I didn't know her age, so I shook my head. She smiled and continued, I am 22 years old. I didn't gain admission on time, but thank God, delay is not denial. I am now a 200 level mass communication student, so you can't expect me to follow the school rules like a dummy. She stood up immediately she finished talking and left the room. I waited for her return all through the night, but she didn't come back till the early hours of the next morning. I continued to focus on my academics and had straight A's in the first semester. I never stopped attending the campus fellowship either, that Dora nicknamed me Jesus Baby. My results in the first semester examinations gained me widespread recognition from my classmates, the hostel members, and even my lecturers. The head of my department invited me to her office on several occasions to advise me to keep up the good work. Likewise, my course advisor, who did the same. All this pushed me to study harder and spend more hours in the library. Some days, I forget to attend the campus fellowship and spend those times in the library. I soon drifted far away from Chidema as I grew closer to Dora. Dora and I had an evening ritual of learning makeup online, following the trending baddies on the internet, and sometimes cooking together. Chidima felt betrayed by me. On one of the nights that Dora had snuck out of the hostel, she came to me and started a discussion with me. Lewa, I think you are getting too close to Dora. I have a feeling that this won't end well for you. I didn't allow her to finish talking before I pretended to be tired and told her I needed to sleep. Chidima stopped talking to me about Dora since that night. She greets me and asks if I was interested in going to the fellowship with her, which I declined every time. I loved Dora's company instead and soon became her bestie. There was a day she came back to the hostel with a big bag full of clothes. She had bought them for me. That day, I burned all my old clothes and wore only the ones she bought. I loved the new me and stopped attending the fellowship entirely. My classmates noticed the change that occurred to me and called me Slay Queen with beauty and brains. Just before the end of the second semester, Dora invited me to one of her night parties, but I declined. This wasn't because of my good morals, but I was too afraid and didn't want to get caught by the school authorities. Dora kept on pestering me for days, but I kept on telling her that I would think about it. Chidima overheard us one day talking about the party and tried talking me out of it, but I shunned her instead. I finally agreed to follow Dora out on a Friday night. I wore a very skimpy red gown with a stiletto heel. We headed out of our room by 9 p.m. that night. As we reached the hostel entrance, I froze with fear as I saw Mrs. Badamosi sitting at her usual spot. Dora smiled and patted me on the shoulder and whispered, "Don't worry, I got this." I dragged myself behind her as she approached Mrs. Badamosi with a huge smile on her face. "Mama, your girl dey go out as usual. Abeg, help me manage this," Dora said as she handed a bundle of 1,000 naira notes to Mrs. Badamosi. Mrs. Badamosi was very pleased and opened the door for us without asking any questions. I was still afraid as we walked out of the door, with fear that she would chase me back, but she didn't. The security men at the school's main gates were also friends with Dora. She handed each of them a bundle of 500 naira notes as they opened the gate for us. A black SUV was already waiting for us at the school's entrance. That night was the night that changed me completely. Did you enjoy the story? Kindly leave your thoughts in the comment section. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more African stories. Thank you.